Sunny day saplings. Today we have a little bit of a different video. So on the stream we had a wonderful 30+ minute conversation all about the morality of Twitch gambling. Now, when you go to university, they teach you two things. One, how to think critically / reading comprehension, and two, how to form an argument. Now, unfortunately, this is something that's kind of lost on the internet, especially Twitter, as the medium doesn't allow for a lot of back and forth, in-depth conversations. This was all kind of started when LS took his esports bet sponsorship around the time at the start of the World Championship. There was a lot of people really upset with him. I've seen all types of accusational, heinous, hate-filled comments, particularly flying across Twitter, with very little discussion as to what these people are actually mad at. I mean, obviously, as it's Twitter, things turned into more of a witch hunt than an actual discussion on morality. Popular YouTuber happychimenoises, for example, took to Twitter in a not so subtle way, contributing to this witch hunt with this tweet. It should be blatantly obvious that the argument of LS is rich, so this is inherently wrong, completely misses the entire point. And it looks like this fragile internet personality would rather block me on Twitter for writing L take and explaining myself, and live in his tiny glasshouse echo chamber of his random thoughts that he has and contributing to a witch hunt, than actually have a spirited conversation. Although it looks like he spoke to Forest Within right after that, and so I guess maybe I wasn't clouded enough. If you watch this, let happychimenoises, I'm very disappointed in him. But how do we actually break down this complex issue? How do we actually have a debate on morality and what is right and what is wrong? In my opinion, there are actually some very strong arguments on both sides of the coin here. On the one hand, we're working with the assumption that we have a predominantly young adult skewed demographic on Twitch as a platform with very little regulation and almost no protections for younger viewers consuming this type of content, as gambling is a more addictive style form of entertainment that can often lead to financial ruin if personal accountability and personal well-being are not thought about for that individual. It can lead to some dire consequences. Now, this is a much stronger argument than the happychimenoises thing saying LS shouldn't be doing this because he's already rich and it's wrong, but I think this is probably what Chimenoises was getting at. But on the other hand, is it the streamer's responsibility to limit his legal industry business acumen because a majority of his audience may be in this impressionable demographic? I believe gambling is not inherently bad. In fact, it can be a positive revenue generator in the economy. It also is a really normal part of our society going forward, and government legislation bodies have kind of deemed it as an acceptable societal practice, at least in the United States and Canada. My general thesis breaks down into a few major points. I think people are not sure what they're really upset at. We are mad at the environment that Twitch has put forward. We are mad at the lack of regulation, but it's a lot easier to witch hunt LS for taking this sponsorship because he's one of the larger creators than to actually face the structural and societal challenges that come with making sweeping changes with large corporations. I think lack of regulation and misrepresentation in the gambling space is extremely lucrative and predatory because of the environment Twitch has fostered. I also think, as a third point, bad actors does not equal bad industry. Twitch and Riot Games ultimately should be responsible for protecting the viewers on their platform and maintaining the integrity of the solo queue environment that they are pushing for new players to want to join, and not the creator themselves. The creator has no responsibility over the solo queue environment, in my opinion. So if this company is in fact doing solo queue betting, which I believe they have put out a statement saying they have taken that off of the platform now, so it's kind of a moot point, it should be up to Riot Games to maintain that integrity. The main responsibility of the content creator is to vet, value check, the companies that they are going into business with to ensure they are the type of company that has the best interests in mind of the wider public and they're not doing shady shit, right? The content creator should not be forced to limit his earning potentials just based on his viewers' demographic and how much money he inherently has. There is a much larger structural conversation that has to happen in that case. So we have a good 30-minute discussion here coming up on the stream that we did, and it's kind of a little bit all over the place, so give it a listen. Let me know what you think. If you want to be part of one of these discussions in the future, check out twitch.tv/MossyElder. And I got all your Ivern needs there. Occasionally, you got to listen to the ramblings of a 30-year-old man with a little bit of life experience. That's what you're going to find here in this video. I encourage everyone to start thinking critically about what they're reading online and make sure you're coming to your own conclusion. What makes sense? What feels right to you? Leave that in the comments down below. I hope you enjoy the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Chat, you guys been seeing the stuff about LS taking a betting sponsor? How do you guys feel about that? I want to pick your brains a little bit. Have you guys seen the... I don't know what you would call it. You don't call it propaganda, right? But the, I guess the Twitter comments, threads. I prefer Evan Shout. Also, fuck LS. Okay. We're not talking about whether or not you like LS, okay? We're talking about whether or not you think content creators should take betting sponsorships on esports, like a sports betting site or company, if it's morally correct or ethical to take betting sponsorships. I just want to see opinions in the chat. I've gone on a Twitter rant about it all this week already. I'm just curious what you guys think. The site he picked can bet on solo queue games, which has caused people to int for the bet. Right, that is a wrinkle in the site. But that has been addressed. They put out a statement and said they're no longer allowing that, which I think is a good thing, personally. Betting on solo queue games, I don't think is very good. I mean, in EU is against it anyway, so I don't feel like I have a say. Wait, you're suggesting it's illegal in EU? Is that what you mean? Is it illegal in EU? Just curious. Yeah, it's illegal in most of EU. Okay, that makes sense. That site also has a history of stealing people's money years back, so not okay with it. Okay, I think you have to move away from shitty people are gonna do shitty things, right? That's not really the question. Obviously, any activity, drinking, drugs, anything, they all can have shitty people doing shitty things. Still happens though. I don't know how, but it does. Maybe they use Bitcoin. Yeah, but is it the site's fault, or is it parents don't watch what their kids are doing online's fault? Nobody ever put a under 18 only sticker on Twitch, right? Like, it's the same as everything. Please play responsibly. Please drink responsibly, etc., etc., right? There should be individual responsibility, I would think. You're still responsible for your own body. Do you mean the betting of points? I'm confused. No, I mean betting on sports. Betting on, like, I think EDG is going to beat C9. I'm going to put a wager of $10 on it. And if I win, I could win $30 or whatever that looks like. I personally think betting on solo queue is not very good, because you wouldn't bet on like you could bet on NBA players, like you could bet on NBA players playing like a pickup game or whatever, which is essentially what solo queue would be. But the lack of regulation and the lack of anybody like keeping track of it and monitoring it and having governmental rules and stuff about it makes it a no bueno IMO. Only Korea, I think, would be able to solve this, since accounts are tied to SSN. No, Riot can solve it, right? So, in my opinion, like, you shouldn't be mad at LS for taking a betting sponsorship, right? Match fixing and players inting solo queue games and win trading and whatnot, that shit has been going on since season fucking 3. The pro players don't seem to give a shit until It involves big streamers. So it's like, sit down, pro players. You had your chance. You had your chance to say something. Riot, you had your chance to say something. The people we should be getting mad at is 1, Twitch for letting it happen. 2, Riot Games for letting it happen. And then it becomes like a bigger issue, like legally and things like that, right? Like Riot Games has the power to stop that kind of stuff. They choose not to all the time. So personally, I don't think it's LS's responsibility to monitor these kids who might be watching League of Legends content. It's not LS's responsibility to be responsible for Twitch demographics skewing towards the younger generation, the younger audiences. I don't think it's personally his responsibility to monitor these kids when their parents aren't monitoring their online activity. And if the only reason we have an issue is because kids are going to start gambling, that it's not LS's responsibility. It's the parents' job. IMO. Yeah, so I don't know. I think there's a lot of moving parts, and I think people are getting mad at the wrong thing. They're mad at the content creator, but I think it's a deeper systemic issue, and there's more responsibility to be handed out. I think on Twitch right now, it's really trendy to attack. It's really trendy to attack gambling streamers right now specifically, and people are lumping it all into the same bucket. So the main issue, the main moral issue with gambling streaming is misrepresentation. And what I mean by that is, if I'm Trainwrecks TV and stake.com comes to me and says, you know what? We want you to stream slots for us, and we want you to promote our casino online. Okay, that's fine. Sure. What are the details of the deal? What are the details of the deal? Well, we're going to give you money to play with. We're going to increase the odds of you winning on slots so it looks more appealing for young kids. That's a misrepresentation of what a casino is actually like, right? In order to get kids hooked on that. And to me, that should be illegal. When you start playing with probability to improve your advertisement, that's when misrepresentation happens, and that is when the casino needs to be held responsible. The same thing with match fixing solo queue games. That's not the intended purpose of sports betting. That is not good for non-pro players who have no stake in the game, and that is misrepresenting the solo queue experience that Riot is trying to put out, which should be Riot's responsibility to monitor and not let these casino companies bet on their solo queue experience that they are the ones responsible for curating. Right, so that's where the difference comes in between LS taking a sponsor, where he is not misrepresenting what he is about. He is saying, here's a code. If you want a cool site to bet on which teams you think are going to win worlds with your real hard-earned money for recreational purposes, this is a site that I am pushing for you to be able to do that. Right? There's no lie in there. There's no misrepresentation. The individual is responsible for all money used, right? The individual is responsible for money put in. The same way an individual will be responsible for how much they drink. The same way an individual is responsible for how much they fucking bet at casino bingo. You know what I mean? Like, it's not LS's job to police the individual. If the kid is underage and has a parental guardian, it is the parental guardian's job to monitor what that kid is doing. And if that 16-year-old kid fakes it and pretends that he's older than he is, well, it happens all the time with like watching porn or with getting someone to buy you alcohol. It's illegal. Shouldn't happen, but it's not LS's fault, right? The kid wants to do shitty things. And then other people have the argument where like, how different is that than one of the Kardashians pushing weight loss supplements? Hey, Kardashians. Hey, everyone, you could look like us if you drink this thing. Oh, but we've had millions and trillions of dollars of surgery. Oh, but we're endorsing this thing. It's pretty good, right? It's misrepresentation. Misrepresentation is where the corruption happens, where the scummy people get paid for doing scummy things. I think that's the main issue. And I think that's where people are getting confused as to where to put their anger. Obviously, if it's against some of your religious affiliations, that's a totally different scenario. Completely fine to believe in whatever you believe in, right? But I just think people are getting mad at the wrong things. And like happychimenoises blocked me on Twitter for having this take, even though he didn't want to talk about it. I said his take was an L take, because he said because LS is so rich already, he doesn't need to be peddling esports gambling betting sites, which obviously he's just trying to fit into the cool shit on gambling streams meta on Twitch right now to get publicity. I fucking highlighted it and said L take. He blocks me on Twitter. He blocks me on Twitter because he wants to live in his pedestal of morality. He wants to scream into his echo chamber and never be challenged, when what he should be trying to do is have a conversation and figure out, like, what is he actually mad at. So I mean, he's kind of being a pussy baby about it, but whatever. He blocked me. It's fine. All I wrote was L take and then my opinion. Imagine being so fragile you block someone for retweeting your tweet and giving their own opinion on it. Feels bad, man. Feels fucking bad. Yeah, I don't know. That's my thoughts on it. I can be mad at LS. Don't tell me what to do. Yeah, you can hate LS if you want. I don't think LS is a saint or anything. But younger people are vulnerable, and turning a blind eye for them is kind of bad. Just because they have parents? Why is it turning a blind eye for them? It's bad for them to have alcohol when their brains are developing. Is it a morality question or is it a legality question? Or do our laws dictate what our moral principles should be as a society? I don't know. That's one question. The EU see it differently than the United States, right? But LS doesn't live in the United States or the EU. Plus, it's not like Twitch is a kiddie platform. It's not YouTube Kids, right? What if LS's target audience for his stream, or what he wants to accomplish, what if his target audience is actually 30-year-olds and that's who he's catering to, right? It's hard because content creators are seen as gods now. Like, it's so hard because we build them up, and we tell them. This is actually Colleen's point when she was talking about it. Colleen said to me, we build up these content creators, but we build up these content creators so much, and we say share everything about yourself, give us the most interesting parts of your life all the time, and then we expect them to be perfect, and we expect what they're going to share for us, like they're going to have the cleanest, like they're never going to do anything wrong. You know what I mean? So it's like, show everything, but if you show something we don't like, oh well, you're gone, right? And I really just don't think it's the content creator's responsibility. Like, we build up these content creators as our idols, and maybe it's a more of a fundamental problem with like how kids interact with TikToks and things. It's really prevalent in TikTok stars, because like we look up to these these stars, right? But they're kids. No one is managing them. Nobody is telling them how to function. Nobody is telling them what to do. These 16-year-old kids are now the idols of 12-year-old kids. And these 20-year-old kids are now the idols of 15-year-old kids. But unless you're Pokemon, you don't have a manager telling you what's right and wrong. Think about when you were a 16-year-old kid, man. Like, you did whatever you wanted. You were like Justin Bieber with a bunch of money going crazy, you know? So I just think in an effort of saving kids, or like saving what we show kids, when you watch the NFL, DraftKings has 14 ads per like episode or per game. Like, Kevin Hart is out here doing fucking kiddie movies. Your favorite movie's Jumanji, and all of a sudden Kevin Hart does 10 spots on NFL Sunday promoting DraftKings. If it's going to be common practice in our everyday society, what makes Twitch different? I don't think Twitch should be looked upon differently. And the same way I still will watch a Kevin Hart movie if it doesn't suck dick is the same way I don't blame LS for having a sponsorship. Now, if the sponsorship that LS has is doing corrupt things, taking advantage of people, misrepresentation that we talked about earlier, then of course that specific company needs to be reprimanded and needs to stop doing what they're doing and needs to be shunned from the industry. But gambling itself is an economic industry accepted in our society for grown adults. Is it LS's job to regulate the platform, or is it Twitch's job to regulate the platform? If our kids are impressionable and our kids of a certain age are going to start gambling because LS has decided he would like to get paid for his work from a esports betting site, then that is Twitch's job to make sure the impressionable demographic of people using their platform are protected in an adequate way, subject to the standards upheld by our law, right? Once again, not a responsibility we should thrust to the content creator just trying to make a living on the platform. That, I think, is my full opinion. And society has told us that they value money. Money rules everything, correct? Correct, chat. Money rules everything. So if the economy is going to rule our let's say our legal system and what laws society values, society values economic growth. This is just the next step in economic growth. Whether you like gambling or not is kind of irrelevant, in my opinion. Okay, where was I in the chat? I stopped reading the chat. I think it's unfair to hold LS responsible for bad actors in the industry and for lack of regulation from large companies. I think that's my narrowed down thesis. I think that's my narrowed down thesis on the conversation. I don't know if that makes sense because I'm trying to play League of Legends. But the almighty dollar, man, the almighty dollar is the powerful one. You know what I mean? It's scary out there, the almighty dollar. It can make people do a lot of crazy things. I understand your point, not all gambling is bad, but this was clearly a bad, sketchy website he sponsored for a quick buck. That could be. That could totally be. That could totally be. The morals of the company and the history of the company should obviously... Okay, so that's a good thing that you've shown me, chat. LS does have some responsibility, right? LS does have some responsibility. So there's a bunch of buckets of responsibility. LS's responsibility is to ensure he is taking sponsorships from corporations that are reputable in their respected industries and are not known for doing scummy things. Okay, so that's where we hold LS responsible for that piece. But that doesn't mean the blanket statement that I read 400 times this week was gambling websites should not be a part of esports and esports streamers, which is not the same argument, chat. That is not the same argument. Won't somebody please think of the children? I feel like LS is trying to save the gambling on Twitch. Do you think that's his opinion? Do you think he has a vested interest in gambling remaining on Twitch? I thought Twitch already decreed that it's going away. But I was confused about that. Like, why is Trainwreck still, if you lose, Colleen's taking parry? Like, why is Trainwreck still out here spinning them old slots in a hashtag ad capacity? I actually don't think slots on Twitch are bad. I just think the representation and way that the deals have been constructed are shady as fuck, which is a big cause for concern because they're very predatory, right? It's the same thing as like a bank lending me money in an acceptable factor, or a predatory lending company giving me a contract to give me money with strings attached, right? It's the same kind of situation. The way that Twitch gambling has been operating is akin to predatory lending in the financial markets. But the way that it should be operating is more so an honest, legit showing of how gambling goes. But that doesn't look as cool. When Trainwreck has to use his own money to do slots and his odds are not ratcheted up 3 times as good, oh, all of a sudden slots aren't really appealing on Twitch, are they? So if you make everyone play by the book, the market is going to sort itself out, right? That's a big argument. It's a big argument. Casino companies are coming into Twitch and sponsoring these streamers because it's lucrative for them to do so, right? The system works. If Twitch regulates who can see these streams, 18 plus, 21 plus, all of a sudden it's not as lucrative per dollar spent. The ROI for the casino is diminished greatly. If all of a sudden Trainwreck is losing more than he's winning, the power of that advertisement goes down considerably. So the system is going to work until who's ever in charge makes sure it stops working. Now, if it's still lucrative once the proper protections are in place for the kids and for the market, then that just means we have an industry driving economic growth in a positive manner. That's the end result. Okay, let me see. I saw Enrique Orange had a comment. I'm very new to the whole situation. From the little I know, I think it should be treated the same way as sports betting, as an esport, on an esports level, not solo queue or whatever. It should be monitored by governors and states, and it should be treated the same as sports betting. 100% agree, Orange. 100% agree. 100% agree. These companies shouldn't be allowed to do backyard bets on non-professional games. It should be kept to Worlds, LCS, any other pro tournaments in CSGO and whatnot, the exact same way as it is for the NBA, NFL, etc. 100%. Is lack of regulation in the internet in general to keep... I'm assuming you mean there is lack of... Yeah, there's definitely lack of the internet in general, which, you know, societal problem. Not really an LS problem, more of a society problem. I'm sorry I'm saying stupid stuff. I'm too sorry. I'll head to bed soon. Influencers and content creators should work with brands and companies that hold their same values. 100% agree. Chat, you guys are coming in with the banger takes here. We don't know everyone's need for money. I mean, he can have somewhat of an influence on it still, just as how the pay rates quickly changed on Twitch for bigger streamers. Well, I'm not sure if LS did this or not, right? But what LS should do before taking that sponsorship is go to that company and figure out who that company is, what that company values, what services that company offers, and if there's any he doesn't agree with, which I saw a tweet he wrote, he doesn't agree with betting on solo queue games. If that is a company value that the company wants to push forward, LS should not take that sponsorship. There's 10 casino companies down the line that don't do that probably want to give LS a sponsorship, right? And that's where LS has to be held accountable. But to witch hunt LS and say, oh, because Twitch frowns on gambling on their platform, we should just cancel LS because he took a gambling sponsorship with no additional context provided, is a witch hunt in itself, and I think unfair. Everyone has their own life and stuff, so what's a quick buck to us might not feel the same way to the content creator. What if you have staff and editors you have to pay and feed? What if your family member is sick, they have large medical bills? Yeah, to say LS doesn't need the money is not for any of us to say. It's not our responsibility to understand LS's financial situation, right? I agree. Solo creator is easiest target for anti-gambling lobby than literally all the esports teams and leagues and networks that cover sports in Europe. Well, that's what I think, right? Like, I think it's really easy to dogpile witch hunt the creator that you might not agree with what they're doing than it is to ask the bigger question of how do we get Twitch to put in regulations? How do we get Riot Games to help us out with this solo queue madness? Everybody's been asking for win trading and griefers to be stopped since season 3. When you're confronted with this situation and happychimenoises tweets out L take, it's because it's the easy, or tweets out he doesn't agree with this. LS should know better. LS is rich. He's a top 5 creator. He shouldn't be targeting these kids, right? happychimenoises is doing a disservice to the discussion because he's taking the easy way out. He's decided, you know what? It's too hard to look at all the facts of the scenario. It's too hard to find all the parties responsible for all the different moving parts in this complex situation that is Twitch.tv and live streaming. It's too hard to do that. So I'm gonna say LS bad, I'm good, I am morally opposed to gambling, You know what I mean? So it's like an easy scapegoat, because rather than face the big structural problems, we can say creator bad, me monkey, I don't like creator now. And it's, I don't know, it's disingenuous. It's such a weird moral high ground to stand on completely ignoring half of the facts, right? Like, we just had a half an hour long conversation on all the different facts and moving parts. You're not going to have that on Twitter. You can't, right? But that's the level of critical thinking that's required when policymakers and economists and whoever work on these kind of situations. This is the kind of critical thinking you have to learn, you have to do. This is what they teach you in university as economists when you're coming up with future plans of the world, right? And you're thinking about the ecosystems and environments that we value as a society and place ourselves in. This is the kind of thought experiment you have to start with, rather than the Reddit mob mentality of witch hunting whoever the hell did something bad you didn't like that day. And that's a big piece missing on the internet today that frustrates me to no end. Yeah, I mean, to me, gambling is very normal. To me, gambling is an industry like any other. And I'm more than willing to acknowledge bad actors versus bad industries, right? I think there's a big difference between people doing shady shit in certain industries and industries being predatory in general, right? Gambling is one of the easiest way because money's changing hands so frequently and often. Because money's changing hands so often and there's a lot of shady people in gambling, it's very easy for it to get a bad name, right? I'm not a fan of gambling and many other stuff, but some stuff can't really go away. That's 100% true. I'm not saying everybody has to like gambling or do gambling or be a gambler, right? It's not for everyone. I'm just saying it's not inherently evil just because LS started to do it, or just because Twitch said it's bad, right? Chat, I'm gonna cap it off by saying you don't have to agree with me and my stance, my personal stance on gambling. That is a personal thing between person to person, completely your own individual thoughts and choices. But I hope I articulated clearly that viewing things in an echo chamber of your own community doesn't allow for critical thinking of the entire situation to happen. And I think that is the point. The main point.
Fly along now. Danger is